I'm your host, sabrinasalvati. I'm your host, sabrinasalvati. I'm your host, sabrinasalvati.
It was a rigged trial by a conflicted judge who was corrupt. It's a rigged trial, a disgrace. They wouldn't give us a venue change. We were at 5% or 6% in this district, in this area. This was a rigged, disgraceful trial. But the real verdict is going to be November 5th by the people. And they know what happened here, and everybody knows what happened here. You have a Soros-backed DA and the whole thing. We didn't do a thing wrong. I'm a very innocent man, and it's okay. I'm fighting for our country. I'm fighting for our Constitution. Our whole country is being rigged right now. This was done by the Biden administration in order to wound or hurt an opponent, a political opponent. And I think it's just a disgrace. And we'll keep fighting. We'll fight till the end, and we'll win, because our country's gone to hell. We don't have the same country anymore. We have a divided mess. We're a nation in decline, serious decline. Millions and millions of people pouring into our country right now from prisons and from mental institutions, terrorists, and they're taking over our country. We have a country that's in big trouble. But this was a rigged decision right from day one, with a conflicted judge who should have never been allowed to try this case, never. And we will fight for our Constitution. This is long from over. Thank you very much.
Welcome to Sabby Sabs podcast. I'm your host, Sabrina Salvati. Yes, that was former President Donald Trump. He has been apparently found guilty on 34 counts with the hush money case. From what I understand, they will actually issue sentencing July 11th. I'm going to get into that much deeper Friday night, because there's a lot that I need to go through, and I haven't had time to go through that. But I did want to go ahead and show you that speech there from Donald Trump. And I want you to ask yourself this question. Has the DNC, has the Democratic Party, with this push with the hush money case, have they just handed Donald Trump the presidential election for November? Something to think about, folks. We'll get into that tomorrow night. Tonight, we have other stories to discuss, but I wanted you to know and to make sure that you knew that I did know about it. So there. All right. Shout out to everyone watching on YouTube, Rockfin, Twitter, and Rumble. And welcome back, guys. We have a pretty based show tonight. We have a lot to discuss. We are also going to do a call-in tonight. I figured you'd want to do that tonight, considering the stories that we're discussing and considering the news that just broke about Donald Trump's case as well. So we will do that. So welcome back, guys. I want to start out by giving shout outs to people in the chat. And if you have a chance, don't forget to answer that poll question about AI. That is important tonight. Shout out to Miguel, says, peace. What's up, Miguel? What's going on, Tim, though? Sabs, with your help, I'm so glad I'm out of the DNC's wicked grasp. I'm sick of people calling out the genocide, but turn right around and say, oh, Trump would be worse. So yeah, you got to vote for Joe. Fuck that. I hear you, Tim. I hear you 100%. Shout out to Gup1, says support BDS, and Gup there is sharing Abby Martin's Gaza Fights for Freedom. If you haven't had a chance to watch that documentary, please check that out. Remember, that was made years ago. Abby Martin was way ahead of this, way ahead of the curve. Greeting, transmission GGB. I will be up tonight for the live stream. Here in the UK, there is a bad joke called The Election where little Rishi can't wait to leave and be replaced by his Labour Party mates. Yeah, I've been picking on Rishi pretty hard, huh? Pretty hard. Greetings, David says, Sabby, did you see that Robert De Niro rant? Dumb as heck and embarrassing to the American people. He's trash. Yeah, I think Robert De Niro needs to just stick to acting. Just stick to that, Robert. Okay? Thank you. Greetings, Lauren says, is Jerry the master of his domain? What's going on? Bruce says, highly recommended site called GDF. What is up? Natalie says, good evening, Starshines. That's an interesting name, Starshines. What's going on? Annoyed Riverboat. Love Sabs. Critique of interviews are my fave. Really? She came hard on Rashida Tlaib. She's right. Rhetoric needs to be backed up by action. She's still inspiring, shouting to the hilltops, human rights, Palestinian human rights. Yeah, you got to have action with that. Otherwise, to me, you're just talking. That's just how I see it. Shout out to AB says, hello. What's going on, New York Varsity? That thumbnail of Biden is priceless. Ha, 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 ha. Let's go. Shooby-dooby-doo. That is a funny picture of Biden there. What's going on, Delthea Simmons? Hello, everybody. Such a slow news day. I wonder what we'll talk about tonight. Shout out to Johnny says, hi, Natalie. What's going on, Johnny? Greetings, Red Six says, hello, Sabby. Happy Thursday. Happy Thursday to you, too. Greetings, Matthew says, Delthea Trump guilty on all charges. Shout out to Mark Pugsley says, Sabby. Greetings, Lorez says, sup, Sabrina, Eric, Corey, and Sabby fam. Voted yes. Anything that hurts workers is bad for people. How was the interview with Garland Nixon? Had to miss. Smash the like, y'all. The interview with Garland was based, man. Check it out when you guys have a chance on Revolutionary Blackout Network. It was me and JB. We interviewed Garland Nixon over there. And we found out something interesting about Garland Nixon. I didn't know that he used to be a DJ. So for me and JB, that still like blows our mind. We're like, what? Greetings, John Evans. Sounds like a superhero character here. Your superhero character is, I don't know, like Deep Crawler or something, but your real name is John Evans. Like any technology, AI could make some workers' lives easier. Unfortunately, under capitalism, it is most likely going to be used to steal even more of our labor value. And I think that's a pretty measured approach there, John. Shout out to Rick says, hey, y'all. Greetings, Joey Peltier says, booze who, folks. Shout out to CBC Voter says, happy Thursday, Sabby Sabs. What's going on? The Tory fam says, hello, love. Shout out to Dwayne. Howdy, y'all. Time to do the damn thing. Greetings. I'll make sure I'm not clicking on the same, almost clicking on the same person. Shout out to Seth Mark says, hi, all. Hello, Seth. Hello. Is it me you're looking for? I can see it in your eyes. That's the Stalker song by Lionel Richie. At the time, I guess it wasn't considered a Stalker song, but if you go back and watch the music video, it's pretty cringe. Shout out to Jamie says, tuned. What's going on? Ali says, hey, you all good people. Hey, hello to you too. Shout out to Eric T. Red holding down the fort says, hey, hi, everyone. Greetings, zombie in the airs doing the dab. Greetings, Anita says, hey, everyone. Shout out to Swampo Possum. His name. I'm a beekeeper. Will be a while until AI can take over my job. Greetings from Fort Wayne. It's a good point there, Swampo. Possums. Possums scare me, man. Like a little secret between myself and you guys. I am afraid of possums. I'm also not too fond of clowns. You know, yes, I'm one of those people that is not fond of clowns. I didn't even like clowns when I was a kid. And it's all because of this movie called It by Stephen King. And that's why I don't like clowns. I don't like possums because they just look kind of creepy. Shout out to Cassandra, says hello to Eric and greeting Johnny is sending a wave there. And shout out to Bad Wolf, says on time, and greeting Zombie in the air, says Orange Man Bad. Greetings, Wary, says, hey, everybody. And Troy says, oh boy is right, Troy. All right, let's go ahead and give a shout out to you, Sabby patrons. Thank you guys so much for holding down the fort. It's funny, I'm seeing the comments about the possums. I guess they're not your fave either, huh? They're creepy. Thank you. Shout out to everyone who is a Sabby patron. Thank you so much for your support. If you're interested in being a Sabby patron, I have 5 categories: Ultimate, Sabinators, Sabsters. Don't forget about those lovey-dovey-dovey-dovey Sabbies. There's a lot of them. The Sabbies. And of course, members. Thank you guys so much for your support. Really do appreciate you. And I want to give a shout out to new Sabby patrons. Over here, we call them newbies. Let's give it up for Helen H. Dun, dun, dun. All right. It's interesting. I haven't met anyone named Helen since I was in elementary school. I had a classmate named Helen, and I never met another Helen. It's really interesting. But yeah, some of you love possums. Interesting. Oh, no, man. I don't know. I am pretty fond of skunks, if they didn't smell. And I heard that skunks can actually be good pets if you remove their little, smelly sensies there. If you remove those, I heard they're actually good, decent pets. But I think they're just so cute and adorable, It's just too bad they smell. Just got to keep it real. All right. Let's see what we're going to talk about tonight. Let's go ahead and dive into that beautiful thumbnail. The skunkies are so cute and adorable. They have cute little faces too. You guys should see them. If you watch like BBC Earth, you watch like the Animal Planets and stuff like that. Little skunks are so cute. Ashura said a possum is a giant rat. All right. What are we discussing tonight, ladies and gentlemen? Tonight, we're talking about Candace Owens speaks out. Yikes. Believe it or not, even though Candace Owens has been issued that gag order from the Daily Wire, she did break her silence on Twitter. We're going to get into that. I don't know if that gets her in trouble or not that she's done this, but we're going to get into that. I guess she said enough is enough. We're also going to discuss Jerry Seinfeld and Bari Weiss Cringe interview. So, these two are buds. They're also Zionists. They are, we'll get into it. I don't want to go on to right now, but we'll get into it. And some of the things that Jerry Seinfeld said during that interview, really makes me upset with myself. I actually used to watch that show, and I actually used to like the show Seinfeld, but not because of his character. That's the funny thing. I never thought Jerry was really the funny one on the show. We're also going to discuss Democrats. Woo! Democrats are freaking out about Joe Biden. So Biden is causing a freak out over these poll results that were just released. And we're going to talk about how mainstream media is trying to find ways to help Joe Biden. But I'm going to talk about one of the issues that is related to this, other than the upset that people have about the U.S. funding the war in Gaza, the economy. So we're going to show some things about the labor force, et cetera, as well. And we're also going to discuss, brace yourself for this one, folks, because Elon Musk has delivered another stern warning about AI, about artificial intelligence, and that includes the labor market. So we are going to discuss that as well. I think when it comes to AI, I think there are extremes. I think some people are taking it a little too extreme and saying AI is going to take over everything. And then I think some people are saying that AI is not going to be a problem at all. And I think when it comes to that particular issue, I think Andrew Yang has a more measured approach. So we're going to look at the difference between what Elon Musk says about AI recently and what he said before about it. This isn't new. And what Andrew Yang has said about it. So we're going to look at both of those. So we'll be getting into that tonight, guys. Toodles. Okay, let's go ahead and go to these comments here. Thank you for the super chat, Roger. Only if we don't transition to worker co-ops, AI Benez bosses. Yeah, we'll get into it. There's a couple things I want to show you about that. Shout out to Hussein. Time for some real news analysis. Let's go, Sab. Oh, well, thank you so much. I appreciate that. And I appreciate the fact you have a picture of a grill, because there's nothing I love better than a cookout. Nothing I love better than grilling. I can grill a couple of things, but I usually, let my husband cook the more complicated things on the grill. But I love grilling. I love a grilled, meal. There's something about putting a piece of chicken breast on a grill versus putting it in the oven, the crock pot, or cooking it on the stove. There's something about that grill taste that I really love. Salmon too, by the way. The cedar plank salmon, you can put that on the grill. You can get the little cedar planks from Walmart or actually Home Depot. A lot of people sell those little cedar planks. And thank you for this as well, Roger. You don't like clowns, yet you cover them every day. That's a good one. Send in the clowns. All right, guys, let's go ahead and get started with our first story. Okay. Artificial intelligence. We have discussed AI on this show before, and I think I was one of those people in the past that looked at it in more extreme forms, and I think Elon Musk is doing that as well. I agree with some of the things that he's saying, but I think that Andrew Yang has a more measured approach when it comes to the labor force, right? And our jobs and which jobs may be threatened because of AI. It doesn't mean that we should just discount it altogether. I do think we need to look at it. But I think that some things are being a little bit exaggerated. Now, recently, Elon Musk spoke at the Viva Technology convention, and he delivered this little response to someone's question. And this actually just triggered people over the internet. And people are saying that Elon Musk is telling you that artificial intelligence is coming for your job, and we're not going to have any jobs. Let's get into his response to this young woman's question about AI. This is what triggered it all, folks. Let's dive in.
Hello, Elon. My name is Shan. I'm a student of University of Bari Weiss. We found that a lot of jobs being replaced by AI. Do you worry about your job being replaced by AI? If not, why? If your job was replaced by AI, what would you do?
Well, we do get into some existential questions here. In a benign scenario, none of us will have a job. But in that benign scenario, there will be universal high income, not universal basic income, universal high income. There will be no shortage of goods or services. And I
pause there for just a second. So that is the phrase that triggered people, where he said, none of us will have a job. None of us. He spoke a little bit more about this, where he went into detail explaining that basically, if you wanted to work, that would be a choice. Like if you wanted to find some type of meaning to your life, because he basically connects working with finding some type of meaning in your life. So he said that it's like, if you want to work, you'll have the option to do so. But basically, we would move towards a universal high income. That's not the same thing as a universal basic income. But I don't see how that's any different from people like Elon Musk, who have criticized these ideas like UBI or any type of government benefits, or what people refer to as government handout, because essentially, if AI were to take over everyone's job, then we would have to get money from somewhere. And that money would most likely come from what? It would most likely come from the government. So let's go on here.
I think the benign scenario is the most likely scenario, probably, 80% likely, in my opinion. The question will not be one of lacking goods or services. Everyone will have access to as much in the way of goods and services as they would like. The question will really be one of meaning, of how, if you if the computer can do and the robots can do everything better than you, then what does your life have meaning? That's really what will be the question in the benign scenario. And in the negative scenario, well, bets are off. We're in deep trouble. So I do think there's perhaps still a role for humans in that we may give AI meaning. So if you think of the way that our brain works, we've got the limbic system, which is our instincts and our feelings, and then we've got the cortex, which is thinking and planning. But the cortex is constantly trying to make the limbic system happy. So maybe that's how it'll be with AI, which is the AI is trying to make our cortex happy, which is trying to make our limbic system happy. And maybe we are what give the AI meaning or purpose, some kind of, yeah. But I do think that long term, in a benign scenario, any job that somebody does will be optional. Like if you want to do a job as kind of like a hobby, you can do a job. But otherwise, the AI and the robots will provide any goods and services that you want.
Sam says this guy is a clown. We love you, Sam. We love you.
Okay, so you see, there is a future where no one will need to work. It will be just passions.
So that is the most likely outcome. If people are interested in reading some science fiction books, that the most accurate portrayal of a future with superintelligent AI was done by Ian Banks. The culture books of Ian Banks are the best. That's probably the best envisioning of a future AI.
Number 2.
Hello, Mr. Musk. So first of all, congratulations for your graduation of your kid. And my question is, do you think that AI will impact the education of the future generation of kids? Mostly about that, the values and the morals.
Well,
so now we get into the question about education. So I don't know if you guys have noticed this, but I think the past week on my phone, when I've searched on Google, I'm getting a response from AI. Whereas usually there will be a list of options of me to choose from. So if I think I searched this the other day, something about Amazon warehouses or something like that. How many Amazon warehouses, et cetera. And the response came from, it said AI at the very top, and it gave an AI response. That didn't used to be the case. So that is fairly new. So when he gets into the education piece, one of the things that I do wonder is that, will we have a need for universities? Will we have a need for K through 12, the standard traditional K through 12 education, if AI advances to that point? To give you an idea, the last program that I worked with at BU, one of my students actually told me, the program was great. I had a great experience. But to be honest with you, everything I learned here, I could have just learned on the internet. And that really made me pause for a second. And it made me think, yikes. Because if they could have just learned all this on the internet, then where are we headed when it comes to education in this country?
I think the parents will still be responsible for values and morals. I do think AI will dramatically affect education because the AI is an extremely knowledgeable teacher, very patient, will be almost always correct, and can tailor the lessons specifically to the child. So it'll be like each child has, Einstein for a teacher. So it would be something quite profound. I do worry that kids these days are being trained by social media, and the social media AI algorithms are basically dopamine maximizers. So they're trying to maximize maximize the amount of dopamine that you get by watching the screen. So that I would urge parents to limit the amount of social media that children are able to see.
Okay, so the part there about social media, it's funny. It's like you own Twitter. And you're trying to make money off of Twitter. So there's that. Oh, my God. Now, he has been trying to warn people about this for years. I saw one video that was like 7 years old, but I can't play that one on here because it has copyright. But I also found this one, an interview that he did with Tucker Carlson just 1 year ago, where he also tried to warn people about AI. So this isn't new. He's just bringing it back to the world stage. 1 year ago with Tucker Carlson, this is what Elon said about AI.
Danger. Can you just roughly explain what you think the dangers might be?
Yeah, so the danger, really, AI is perhaps more dangerous than, say, mismanaged aircraft design or production maintenance or bad car production, in the sense that it has the potential, however small one may regard that probability, but it is non-trivial. It has the potential of civilizational destruction. There's movies like Terminator, but it wouldn't quite happen like Terminator, because the intelligence would be in the data centers.
Right.
The robot's just the end effector. But I think perhaps what you may be alluding to here is that regulations are really only put into effect after something terrible has happened.
That's correct.
If that's the case for AI, and we only put in regulations after something terrible has happened, it may be too late to actually put the regulations in place. The AI may be in control at that point.
You think...
So that part right there, and I'll play a little bit more, but that part right there, when he talks about putting regulations in place, if AI is already in control, it would be too late to go back and implement some type of regulation. So when we think about some of the different agencies that we have in the United States, like the Food and Drug Administration, they have like a list of regulations, although their regulations haven't always been followed. That's how we ended up with like the opioid epidemic, right? Because they didn't always follow their own regulations, and there were people that were paid off at the Food and Drug Administration. But that's one of the warnings that he gives about AI. And then there's this piece here.
That's real. It is conceivable that AI could take control and reach a point where you couldn't turn it off, and it would be making the decisions for people.
Yeah, absolutely.
Absolutely.
No, that's definitely where things are headed. For sure. I mean, the things like say ChatGPT, which is based on GPT-4 from OpenAI, which is a company that I played a critical role in creating, unfortunately.
Back when it was a nonprofit?
Yes. I mean, the reason OpenAI exists at all is that Larry Page and I used to be close friends, and I would stay at his house in Palo Alto. And I would talk to him late into the night about AI safety. And at least my perception was that Larry was not taking AI safety seriously enough.
What did he say about it?
He really seemed to be one sort of digital superintelligence, basically digital God, if you will, as soon as possible.
He wanted that?
Yes.
So Larry Page, by the way, one of the co-founders of Google, was also missing last year. I covered that story. They were actually trying to serve him with a subpoena. This was in reference to the Jeffrey Epstein situation, and he was missing. And there was a story saying that Larry Page cannot be found. And I was like, Larry's not missing. Larry just went into hiding. He's like, I don't want to deal with this. So that's what I said was going on with Larry. But if that is true, that Larry wanted this super digital AI being, yeah, that is very concerning. I don't know what the hell Larry is thinking, playing around with something like that. Yeah, it could be incredibly dangerous, but we didn't get that. We don't have that right now. But let him finish with this.
He's made many public statements over the years that the whole goal of Google is what's called AGI, artificial general intelligence, or artificial superintelligence. And I agree with him that there's great potential for good, but there's also potential for bad. And so if you've got some radical new technology, you want to try to take the set of actions that maximize the probability that it will do good and minimize the probability it will do bad things.
Yes.
It can't just be hell for leather. Let's just go, barreling forward and, hope for the best. And then at one point, I said, well, what about, we're going to make sure humanity's okay here. And then he called me a speciesist.
Did he use that term?
Yes. And there were witnesses. I wasn't the only one there when he called me a speciesist. And so I was like, okay, that's it. I'm a speciesist, okay? You got me. What are you?
Yeah, so Larry Page obviously had some screws loose. But that being said, I will say this. I don't think it is as extreme as Elon Musk is saying. But I will say this. I did just watch a movie on Netflix called Atlas. It stars Jennifer Lopez and also Sterling K. Brown, who was one of the three kids on the show This Is Us. And it is about AI. And so I do like to watch like sci-fi themed like shows and movies. And so when I saw that, I was like, oh, sci-fi thing. So I watched that just the other night. And the premise of that movie is that Jennifer Lopez is like this analyst, an AI analyst. Her mother created an AI robot when she was a kid. And essentially along the way, things turned and that AI robot was able to become more powerful than what they wanted it to become and basically turned itself into an AI soldier terrorist or whatever. It's really interesting. I mean, I thought it was pretty cool because I like sci-fi and all that kind of stuff, but it was an example, I guess, to try to show people like you don't want to go too far with AI. But in reference to the labor force, I think Andrew Yang actually has a more measured approach to this when Elon Musk says nobody's going to have a job. Andrew Yang actually says something a little bit different. And I want you to hear this. This was a year ago from Andrew Yang. And Andrew's been on the show. I should invite him back on again to talk about AI this time, not about politics. But Andrew said there are certain industries that will be impacted, and then there are certain ones that will not. And I think that's more of a measured approach. Let's get into that here.
So the fact is a lot of people's jobs right now are dependent less upon like, hey, could AI do your job theoretically? It's more about, hey, this organization, like what are its incentives and what are its resources at a particular moment in time. So if you're a university, and let's say I came to a university registrar and was like, hey, like you can get rid of half these employees, like, you can just do this stuff with AI. Like, is the university's culture such that they're going to turn around and do that? Like, maybe not. Like, maybe.
No, it's not a part of the culture. And I can answer that from personal experience. I was working in higher ed during the pandemic when they sent all of us home to work remotely, not realizing we were going to end up working remotely for over a year. And they weren't prepared for that. And they were trying to do everything that they could to get us to come back to the office, even during the summer when there were no students there. It was just ridiculous. But they were very clear. By they, I mean the administration, the deans, and the president of the university were very clear about the fact that they wanted these students to have administrators present on campus. And you got to remember, like, we were locked down here in Massachusetts and all of that. And they said that that is not the typical university culture for all of you to work remotely. There is supposed to be an in-person presence on this campus. Otherwise, the students don't get the full college experience. So I can answer that question for Andrew. No, a university culture would not be okay with that.
If like a really hard time comes to that university, if you're a public employee, it's the same thing. Like the issue is that like healthcare, when you talk about the radiologist, healthcare is going to be one of these protected industries, because even if you can do some things with AI, like the medical lobby will just be like, it's got to be human. Then there are going to be certain workers in certain industries. I'm going to use ad agencies as an example that comes to mind, where it's like, we don't give a shit about what goes on. Like the ad agency is going to be like purely efficiency driven. Insurance company, same thing. It's like financial institution, same. They're going to be a very ruthless market efficient actor. And if they look around and say, hey, it turns out I can do this department's job with half the workers, then we're going to do it. So you're going to see different parts of the economy respond in different ways. And I think that there's going to be an instinctive sense of this, and people are going to go try and flow towards areas that are more politically protected.
That's a really good point there. And I want to bring this up about healthcare. Thank you so much for saying this, Jamie. Jamie said, I don't like telehealth. Neither do I. So that is an example that I I think when it comes to healthcare, you should be able to see a human being in person if you need to. I don't think the telehealth thing, I was never really a fan of. I mean, there's only so much you can say to someone virtually. Sometimes you need to actually physically examine someone, right? That's just how it works. But one of the other industries I want to bring up where this may affect, just based on what I've seen, the software industry. So for a while, a lot of people have joined these coding boot camps. A friend of mine was in a boot camp. It was like a 6-week coding boot camp. And she's like, now I know how to code and I can just go get a job and then I'll just be a professional coder. Coding is something that I could see AI actually pulling jobs away from that particular field, right? I mean, do you actually need to have a human sit there and code? That's something I think that AI could take over. So some of those jobs that deal with like software engineering, maybe computer programming, that type of field. But then I'm thinking about the restaurant industry, right? And I'm thinking about retail. A lot of retail now is online anyway. But when it comes to the restaurant industry, do you need to have employees physically behind the counter if you have some type of AI technology that can just actually give you your food itself? So for example, you walk into a McDonald's and there's like 5 different self-checkout lanes. Do you need to go up to the counter and actually speak to the person behind the counter? Not necessarily. And if there's actually a McDonald's in Texas that already has this. There's no people inside. Everything's done like just through AI. You order your food yourself, you pay for it yourself through the machine, and the machine spits out your food to you. So I can see the restaurant industry being impacted by this, software industry being impacted by this, also just the tech industry in particular being impacted by this as well. The finance industry, as Andrew Yang said, because again, like, do you need to have a person sit there and do those the mathematical models, or can you get AI to do the mathematical models? So I'm thinking about those types of industries. Retail is pretty much going down the tube anyway. Like I said, a lot of stores have closed because more people are buying their clothing online, and also because of Amazon. Even you can buy clothes from Amazon too. So there's that. And that, it makes me concerned because a lot of Americans, the industries that they work in are the food and service industry or the retail industry. The average middle-aged woman in the United States works retail. So when it comes to those two industries, yes, I am concerned about AI, interrupting that. But then there's also something Andrew Yang warned us about when he was running for president. And he had to say this to Elizabeth Warren, the snake of all people, but the trucking industry. How many of you remember this? Let's do this little bit of a flashback here.
Senator Warren, I've been talking to Americans around the country about automation, and they're smart. They see what's happening around them. Their Main Street stores are closing. They see a self-serve kiosk in every McDonald's, every grocery store, every CVS. Driving a truck is the most common job in 29 states, including this one. 3.5 million truck drivers in this country, and my friends in California are piloting self-driving trucks. What is that going to mean for the 3.5 million truckers or the 7 million Americans who work in truck stops, motels, and diners that rely upon the truckers getting out and having a meal? Saying this is a rules problem is ignoring the reality that Americans see around us every single day.
Now, let's talk about this for just a second, because when Andrew Yang was talking about this during this time, and I didn't agree with all of Andrew Yang's policies, but I did agree with him about automation. And it's actually been happening around us if we just, take the time to look. We'll get to the truckers in just a second. How many of you have ever been to the retail store called Kohl's, right? It's pretty, kind of department store-esque. Pretty cheap, though. You can get like name brand clothes from Kohl's and shoes from Kohl's, but for a cheaper price than you could at like a typical shoe store, etc. The Kohl's that I went to recently, they have 4 self-checkout lanes. So I actually just went in there because I needed to just replace my concealer. That's it. That's the only reason I went in there. Went in there to grab my concealer. And then I go up to the front register and I'm like, there's nobody working here. There was no one working at the front register of the Kohl's. So I go back, I'm looking around the store and I'm like, I need to check out. And they said, oh yeah, you can just check yourself out over there. So what? So I got into the self-checkout line to check out myself at Kohl's. Then it dawned on me, what about people who are buying clothes and they have the sensor tags on the clothes, right? So how are you going to take off the sensor? So then I noticed another woman who did have clothes. She's going to check herself out. Apparently now, if you have clothes and there's a sensor, you as the customer have to feel through the clothes yourself to see if there's a sensor tag on it. And then if there's a sensor, you have to hold the item up to this little light. And then that buzzes someone to come up to the register and take the sensor off for you. And you have to continue checking yourself out. It's happening all around us. And it's been happening for some time. Now let's move to the truckers. Self-automated trucks, it makes perfect sense because if you've known anyone that's been a truck driver, they're driving long hours across the country. And typically they're at truck stops. So when they get tired, they will pull over at a truck stop and they'll sleep there. You know, they can put like a mattress or something in the back of the truck and they'll just sleep there, wake up and continue driving the rest of the way. Why do all that? If you have self-driving trucks, you don't have to have the driver take breaks. Automated self-driving trucks can drive the whole way and not stop, which means faster service and faster production. So these are the industries that I worry about. It bothers me when I walk into Kohl's and I have to check out myself. It bothers me that they're actually making self-driving trucks. There are a lot of people in this country that really those are good paying jobs. They will tell you that's a good paying job for my family. What is that going to mean with all those people? So the industries I think we need to focus on is of course, the trucking industry, retail, food and service industry, and then the tech industry. I think we need to focus on that. And this is one of the things I was worried about too, when a lot of people were jumping into the coding field and they're like, I'm just going to do this coding boot camp and switch over to this, and I thought about that and I'm like, can't AI code too? So I don't think it is as extreme as Elon Musk says. And I think Andrew Yang has a more measured approach where there will be certain industries that'll be affected more than others. That's kind of how I look at it. But Elon is kind of hypocritical too, because I'm like, dude, you own Twitter. Okay. All right. Let's go to the comment on Rockfin, Eric, and then I'll get the YouTube chats. Woohoo. All right. Thank you for the tip on Rockfin, Roger. So what's going to happen when AI gains consciousness and does not wish to serve us anymore? That's exactly what I want to give the movie away. You guys should watch it yourself. But that's exactly what happens in the movie Atlas on Netflix. Generations from now, when our descendants don't know how to do for self because we became so dependent on them, we will be slave holders because they're either going to want to be paid or free to walk and go it ourselves. Didn't the guy who created AI stop and walk away? Isaac Asimov's 4 Laws of Robotics from the book. Yeah, these are good points. iRobot, Chris Claremont's Uncanny X-Men issue 141 and 142, Days of Our Futures Past, James Cameron Terminator movies, The Matrix movies. We should pass on and never lose ability to do for self to our descendants. Like I said, AI benefits the boss, not the worker. We need to start worker co-ops immediately so we decide how far we are to go with AI. Yeah, and that's another thing too. I mean, this is not good for the worker. It's just not. Thank you, Sherry. Elon Musk is an android. Frank, he said in a benign situation, so best case scenario, and he's not wrong there, we need a high UBI already, let alone when tech takes over a lot of jobs. Yeah, man. I said that in an Usher voice. Yeah, man. Mima says artists and musicians will never be replaced with AI. That's not actually true. There's already Chat GPT for podcasts. I've seen this. If you actually look on YouTube, there are certain videos, particularly like those movie review videos, and you click on it and you think it's going to be an actual person sitting there giving you a movie review. And a lot of times it's AI. It's an AI voice giving you the review of it. This has also been done with music already. They've already used it to create songs and make it sound like it's a real person when it's not. So I don't know about that. The Oracle, the question will be how the elites plan to continue controlling everyone and maintaining class distinctions. That's true. That is a good point. Thank you, P. Smith. Yuval Noah Harari, humans are hackable. Notori says Facebook has it. An AI can write a whole book or a paragraph now on Facebook. You guys see this? So remember when the writers went on strike? Remember, that was one of the issues that was raised, that they were trying to use AI. They're like, we can get AI to write these scripts. Adonia Rose says, Sabby, there is a private school that has tested it in some state in the US. They don't have teachers. And think about teaching. Leroy, this is the same clown that wants you to install a brain trip. That's true. That is so true, Leroy. He does want you to install a brain chip. Excuse me. Thank you, Troy. I work in quality for a company who introduced AI on their phone systems, and it's terrible. No human connection, and has made our customer satisfaction get worse and causing even more billing issues. Thank you, Mad Wolf. To those that are loyal to the duopoly that say all these immigrants coming into our country to take our jobs, while the 1% getting ready to replace them with AI. Idiots. That's them trying to pit the workers against each other, Mad Wolf. Thank you, Fo. I'm a truck driver who's listening to your show as I'm driving. Hey, what's up? I'm really hoping to be retired before AI takes over my job. More power to you, Fo. What's going on? Thank you, Dre Harden. A few years ago, liberal art degree holders were balking at blue collar laborers in West Virginia. They chanted, learn to code. Those people are being replaced at an even faster pace than the dirty plumber they laughed at. That's a good point, Dre. Interesting times we're in, Interesting times. And thank you, Hemp Car. Does the future need people? At least not so much. Useless class. Yuval Noah Harari says, kind of like Hitler's useless eaters. Human contaminated machine, says NASA Dennis Bushnell, chief scientist Langley. Interesting, guys. All righty. If you haven't had a chance to do so, folks, go ahead and smash that like button. If you're new, don't forget to like, sub, and share. And we are moving on to our next story, getting away from the creepy AI part. The Democratic Party is freaking out. And apparently this was happening behind the scenes, but now it is no longer behind the scenes. Thanks to this article from Politico, it has been revealed that the Democratic Party are starting to freak out, literally freak out. They're calling it a full-blown freak out over Joe Biden's polling. Take a look at this, fam. Dems in full-blown freak out over Biden. One advisor to major Democratic donors keeps a running list of reasons Biden could lose. I hate to say I told them so, but here we are. Listen to this. A pervasive sense of fear has settled in at the highest levels of the Democratic Party over President Joe Biden's reelection prospects, even among office holders and strategists who had previously expressed confidence about the coming battle with Donald Trump. All year, Democrats have been on a joyless and exhausting grind through the 2024 election. But now, nearly 5 months into the election, anxiety has morphed into a palpable trepidation trepidation, according to more than a dozen party leaders and operatives. And the gap between what Democrats will say on TV or in print and what they'll text their friends has only grown as worries have surged about Biden's prospects. This is interesting too, because Jill Biden, First Lady Jill Biden, was recently on The View, and she was reassuring everyone that come November, the numbers will turn around in Biden's favor. So that's another example of what they're saying on TV and what they're saying behind the scenes about Biden's reelection chances. You don't want to be that guy who is on record saying we're doomed, or the campaign's bad, or Biden's making mistakes. Nobody wants to be that guy. That's coming from a Democratic operative. Okay. But Biden's stubbornly poor polling and the stakes of the election are creating the freak out. Everybody's just going to freak out. You know, this reminds me of, have you guys seen, what is it? Oh, the football movie, but it's a romantic comedy. Jerry Maguire. Remember in Jerry Maguire when Tom Cruise, he just walks in, he's like, they told him he was fired or whatever, and he's gathering his stuff and he's like, you guys thought I was going to freak out? Despite everything, Trump is running ahead of Biden in most battleground states. He's raised far more money in April, and the landscape may only become worse for Democrats with Trump's hush money trial concluding and another, this one involving the president's son, set to begin in Delaware. And as we started out the show tonight, we did tell you that you heard, obviously, Donald Trump has been found guilty on all 34 counts. The sentencing is supposed to be scheduled for July 11th, but that doesn't mean much in reference to the election in November, because that doesn't mean that this will prevent Donald Trump from continuing his run. In fact, this could take so long. You know how long it takes for people to go to court? You know, that's why there's, some people sitting in jail not necessarily because they're guilty, but because they can't pay cash bail. So they're sitting there waiting for a trial. It can take years sometimes before you actually have a trial. So that doesn't mean he's still not going to be able to participate in the presidential election. And it also shows you, with that verdict that was given today, I'm already seeing people once again turning Donald Trump into a martyr, which actually could help him come November. Let's go on. The concern has metastasized in recent days as Trump jaunted to some of the country's most liberal territories, including New Jersey and New York, to woo Hispanic and Black voters, as he boasted improbably that he would win in those areas. Let's go down to this part here. Donors ask me on an hourly basis about what I think, the advisor said, calling it so much easier to show them. So while they read it, I can pour a drink. The list of why we could win is so small, I don't even need to keep the list on my phone. See, it's all coming out, folks. It's all coming out now. Check this out. On the day after the news broke that Biden had trailed Trump in fundraising last month, Massachusetts Governor Maura Healey raised the pressure on donors as she introduced the president to a crowd of 300. A crowd of 300 people. But this is not new. When Biden was running for president in 2020, he came to Boston then too. It was about 100 people that showed up. I tried to tell people back then, Joe Biden never really developed a strong base. And we are starting to see this in real time now that he's up for re-election. A lot of the people that voted for him just voted for him because they didn't want Donald Trump again. That doesn't mean they loved Joe Biden. Here we are. And I want to touch on this piece right here. Let's go down here. A Biden campaign advisor granted an amenity to speak freely stressed that the president's team never made any indication that Trump's hush money trial would help or hurt him. Instead, the advisor contended that Trump will be forced to defend cutting back abortion rights, attacking democracy, and advancing corporate interests as president. It's such a mess. And this piece right here, I wanted to let you see as well. It says a lot can happen between now and then. This is coming from Representative Ann Custer. She too pointed to eroding abortion rights under the conservative-led Supreme Court remade by Trump. I know a significant number of voters are going to be motivated by the Dobbs decision. Yeah, but is that going to be enough to make Democrat operatives not panic? Apparently not. Even the media is trying to reach. You'll see here in this clip from CNN, they're trying to discuss some type of unusual pattern that actually could help Biden in a certain state. Remember, Joe Biden is not doing well in the swing states. Let's get into this.
So if you've been on social media in the last 10 or 15 minutes, you've seen a story that's getting a huge amount of buzz right now. Politico is reporting there is a, quote, full-blown freakout among Democrats over President Biden's re-election prospects. CNN's Harry Enton is here with me now. So there's that, Harry, but there is something in the polling that's a feature that Democrats might be happy about.
Yeah, you know, you spoke about it, I believe, last week a little bit, and it's essentially this. Right now we're looking at polls of registered voters. But of course, you have likely voters and those who will actually turn out and vote. And if you look at the registered voters, Donald Trump's ahead by an average of 2 points. But look at likely voters right now. What we see in those polls, those same exact polls, but among likely voters, is a tie. And this is a very unusual pattern because normally what happens is the broader universe of all registered voters is more favorable to Democrats than those folks who actually vote. So back in 2020, Joe Biden won registered voters or led amongst them in the post-election polls by 5 points. He, of course, only won by 4. Go back to 2012. What do we see? Among all registered voters, we saw Barack Obama would have won that group by 6 points, but of course he only won by 4. So this is a very different thing that we see going on here. When you look at all registered voters, you get actually a more favorable environment for Donald Trump than if you look at those folks who are actually likely to turn out and
Again,
vote.
this is a flip from what we've seen historically. Are there any states this matters more than others?
Yeah, so, you know.
Let's pause here for just a second. So again, when you're looking at national polling results, that doesn't really help us much when it comes to the presidential election, because you have to look at how they're polling in the swing states. At the end of the day, it comes down to those states. That is going to determine who wins the election in November. And that's the area where Biden is not performing well. It's just a reality, right? So that's what you got to focus on. Remember, whenever you hear them talk about these national polls, we always have to bring it back to the swing states because that is a big part of it. Now, let me come back here a little bit here and bring this back up. So I wanted to show you what he was talking about
And
here.
if you look at those folks who are actually likely to turn out and
Again,
vote.
this is a flip from what we've seen historically. Are there any states this matters more than others?
Yeah, so, you know, we're looking nationally, but of course things are determined in the Electoral College. And one state where the polls have consistently shown, the New York Times CNN college poll, I've also seen a little bit in our CNN poll when I dug into the crosstabs a little bit, where we see this massive jump from registered voters. Look at this, Donald Trump at 49%, Joe Biden at 42%. Go to likely voters, look at this, a well within the margin of error contest in which Joe Biden actually scores 47% to Donald Trump's 46%. He is doing significantly better among likely voters in Michigan than among registered voters. And part of the belief for that reason, John, is because Michigan has very lenient voter registration laws, a lot of automatic voter registration in the state of Michigan.
So that explains.
So let's pause here for a second. And this is what I want to point out, which they're not going to tell you because it's not their job to tell you this. The fact that Joe Biden is only polling 1% above Donald Trump in Michigan and he's the incumbent, that's embarrassing. That is embarrassing. He won Michigan. Joe Biden won Michigan in 2020. It shouldn't even be that close. Now, they're not going to tell you that. Otherwise, they wouldn't be able to keep their jobs. But this is why the Democratic Party is freaked. This is why they're freaking out. Because this is crazy. This is ridiculous. But you got to remember what happened in Michigan. The uncommitted voter campaign that decided not to vote for Joe Biden in the primary. And a lot of them are still saying they're not going to vote for him come November because of his actions towards the Palestinian people in Gaza. And you can't fault them for that. So there's that. And another thing I want to point out, look at what they're focusing on. They're looking at the number of registered voters and the number of likely voters, right? So let's break this down, folks. These are the people who are registered right now. That number can always change. More people may register the closer we get to the election. We see this happen all the time. Like people are like, yeah, I'm not registered. I don't really care. And then the closer you get to November, people may change their mind and decide to register. We saw that happen in Georgia, where Stacey Abrams actually got a lot of people that were not registered to register to come out and support Joe Biden. So we can't hold on to that number of registered voters just yet. Then when it comes to likely voters, they don't tell you what that is. Well, what do you mean likely? I mean, I could be likely to go to Dunkin' Donuts and get a green tea, Harmony Leaf, my fave. But I could also be likely to just make my own tea. I mean, what do you mean likely? Well, what do you mean? And what demographics are they using to determine, what data are they using to determine who is considered to be a likely voter? If it's just based on age, then maybe they're looking at voters 65 and up. But what are they looking at? We need to know that.
Is Michigan overall what might be contributing to this trend?
Yeah. So, we've spoken a ton about Joe Biden's problem with young voters, right? Look at the 2020 results. We see Joe Biden in those exit polls and in the post-election survey from the Pew Research Center, winning young voters, those under the age of 30, by 25 points. Right now in the polls, look at that. Joe Biden's up by just a single percentage point. My goodness gracious, what a decline for Joe Biden. But there is, of course, an age reversal going on here that I don't think gets spoken about nearly enough, which is in those exit polls in that Pew Research Center post-election survey, Donald Trump by 5. Now we have Joe Biden by 6 points. And of course, older Americans are much more likely to vote. So this is an age reversal I think Joe Biden will take.
Yes, older Americans are much more likely to vote. However, you have to remember that Joe Biden did get a significant portion of young voters in states like Georgia. And this is also why I think Georgia will go back to the Republican Party. I think Trump will win Georgia. This is why I don't like calling it a swing state. I still think Georgia's a red state. But either way, it was those young voters that came out in Georgia that helped Joe Biden win Georgia. That, along with the suburban moms, the Atlanta suburban moms. So there's that. So you can't just sit up here and discard those young voters that did come out. A lot of them first-time voters that did come out to support Joe Biden. Look how quick he's just ready to just throw them away and just be like, well, there's a reversal here. There's a increase with the voters 65 and up. So those are the ones who are more likely to come out and vote. But what does that tell you? The people who are 65 and up won't always be here. The younger people are the future. And if you're thinking about the future of this country, if you think about the way that our government has disappointed, has lied to the youth, the way that they've treated the youth, they've disregarded them, they've sicked the police on the youth, the way that they have treated them. Do you think these kids are going to forget this when they get older? It's a different time. And we have social media. So they're going to remember that. These are things I think they're not thinking about.
These are the voters who show up, generally speaking, but that's a huge swing among younger voters.
It's something historic, John.
All right, Harriet, and thank you very much.
Thank you.
Kate?
Let's talk about this. Joining us right now is Republican Congressman Byron Donalds from Florida. Congressman, thanks for coming in. What Harry and John were talking about, New York Times also had an analysis of this as kind of the registered voters versus the likely voters conundrum, I'm calling it. And as the New York Times kind of put it as part of their analysis, it says, to an extent that hasn't been true in the New York Times Siena College polling in the last 8 years, disengaged voters are driving the overall polling results and the storyline about the election. They are the disengaged are the low turnout voters. They're the voters that are less likely to actually decide to show up and vote on election day. With that in mind, how much does that, kind of this conundrum, if you will, concern you regarding Donald Trump, his campaign efforts, him trying to win re-election, him trying to win election once again, with really kind of turning those voters out?
Well, first of all, it's good to be with you this morning. I'm not really too concerned. Here's why. This election is really going to come down to a choice between two presidents, the 45th, the 46th. And I think that when you have a lot of voters registered, likely, whatever the case might be, when they really take stock of the job both of these men have done, they're going to sit there and say Donald Trump was a significantly better president. It's not even close. Look at every metric. Look what's happening around the world. The world was safer. Inflation was lower. Our border was secure. Everything that truly matters in the lives of the American people was better under Donald Trump when he was president. So at the end of the day, I think that's what's going to really shake out at the only poll that matters on November 5th.
And this is the same thing I've been hearing from voters as well, and in particular, African-American voters, when we talk about the economy. And I'm going to show you one of the issues with under Joe Biden's economy in just a second. They're saying that, like, look, I have more money in my pocket when Donald Trump was president. This is what I've heard from a lot of people. And he said the world was safer. Now, let me go ahead and debunk something here. It's not like Donald Trump is anti-war, because he's not. Donald Trump also implemented coups in Venezuela. He also sent money to Ukraine, not as much as the Biden administration, but he still sent money to Ukraine. But we didn't have the war in Gaza, or excuse me, Israel's assault on Gaza. We didn't have the war between Russia and Ukraine. And people are looking at those things and they're seeing every time you turn around, millions of dollars and billions of dollars going out the door to Ukraine or to Israel. We weren't hearing about all this when Trump was president because we didn't have those particular conflicts in play at that time. So one of the things that people do say is that Donald Trump didn't start any new wars, right? But he did implement coups, like the coup in Venezuela. There's that. There's also the issue with Julian Assange, which people seem to forget about this. You have to remember, when was Julian Assange like kidnapped and all that stuff? That was under Trump's administration. So when a lot of people hear him say that he wants to free Julian Assange, you have to remember he had an opportunity to do that when he was president. It was his administration that went after him. So just think about that. But in reference to the economics, he's right about that. And now you'll see something else I'm going to show you too when it comes to the jobs.
The thing we learned this morning is that the Biden campaign is going to be getting some help from three former police officers, three police officers who were there on January 6th, names that have become very well known for speaking out about what happened to them on January 6th, how they defended the Capitol on January 6th. And the Biden campaign is going to be using them, getting help from them in swing states to, in their view, speak about the threat that Donald Trump poses to democracy in 2024. I mean, they carry an interesting story, an interesting personal story. How do you counter that?
I counter that with the fact that Joe Biden has been a disastrous president, and he's been a threat to democracy. Check this out. He has suppressed the free speech of the American people during COVID-19. He forced members of our military to take the COVID-19 vaccine when they did not want to. And now that all the facts are out, they destroyed their military.
Oh, let me move this up a little bit. I think when it comes to the pandemic, there are some people that are upset about Trump, about his policies as well. Some people were not happy about the fact that Trump actually left it up to the governors of the states to decide whether or not they were going to implement lockdowns. Some people didn't like that.
Who's a threat to democracy? It's without a question, Joe Biden has been that threat. Violations of separation of powers, violations of the First Amendment, just because he wanted to get his way. That is not good for an American president who just uses and changes the law based upon his own whim, his own desires, his own politics. That is wrong. And so I think if you're going to try to bring out what happened on January 6th versus the 4 years of Joe Biden's presidency, Joe Biden is the one who's not been protecting our institutions. He's not been protecting our Constitution. He's actually been a major detriment to the very pillars of our nation.
And this is part of the argument you were trying to make on the campaign trail for Donald Trump. Nikki Haley has now said she's going to vote for Donald Trump, which has some suggest.
And then there goes into Nikki Haley. And I don't know about you guys, but I'm so tired of Nikki and I wish she would just fade away. But in reference to the economy, we'll show the young voter part and then the economy. Look at this. Biden's problems with young voters are glaring. Poll finds. I'm just going to show you the numbers here. Younger voters have been a crucial voting bloc for Democrats for decades. Let me highlight this. Okay. Voters 18 to 29 years old made up roughly 1 in 6 voters in 2020. You see? So you can't sleep on the young people. They did help Biden. Biden won them by more than 20 points, according to the exit polls. He won voters under 45, who were 40% of the electorate, by double digits too. But now, when you look at the numbers in a head-to-head matchup with Trump, Biden and Trump are in a statistical tie, with Biden narrowly ahead 50% to 48%. He leads by just 4 points with voters under 45 and by 6 with Gen Z and millennials. Again, they're talking about national voters, right? So this is the popular vote. This is not the electoral college. Remember, it comes down to the swing states. It could very much be that Biden could win the popular vote in November and still lose, just like Hillary Clinton did. Let's go on. Now look at this part here. But when independents, RFK Jr. and Cornel West, as well as Green Party candidate Jill Steiner introduced, Biden trails Trump by 4 points. Trump leads with 6 with Gen Z and millennials and by 8 with those under 45. Now let's get into the numbers of people who are younger. Right here. Joe Biden's approval rating for voters 18 to 29 is just 24%. 24%. That's bad. 62% have an unfavorable opinion of him, while Trump gets a net positive rating, 49% to 42%. That's the highest favorability rating for Trump of any of the age groups. With voters overall, Trump has a slightly higher unfavorable rating, 54%, than Biden, 52%. So Joe Biden allowed Donald Trump to have a higher approval rating with the younger population than him. When it comes to the economy, this is one of the big issues that the Biden administration is lying about. Biden keeps telling you that he created all these jobs, but they never tell you what those jobs are. And I've complained about this for quite some time. Some of those jobs are just contract jobs. Some of those jobs are just temp positions. Yes, it does exist. I've done temp work. But they are silent about the layoffs. And I've been explaining this to people for over a year while they have been, bragging about the economy doing great. I've been trying to tell people that these companies have been laying people off by the hundreds. Most recently, right here in Massachusetts, largest life science employer to cut over 600 jobs. 600 jobs. This was announced on May 28th. 600 jobs, folks. Life science is a big industry here in Massachusetts, particularly in the Boston area. It's not some one-off industry. A lot of the students that graduate from the colleges here end up working in the life sciences. So it is popular. Now this industry is being hit. 600 people. This is just one of them. Just one. So this part right here, let's see if I put it here. I can't remember if I put it here or if I had it on Twitter. I totally forget. Let me go to, I think it was here. If not, I'll have to go to my Twitter because they compared it to 2009. I'm probably going to have to go to my Twitter. Yeah, let me go to my Twitter. Sorry, guys. Twitter. I want to show you something because it drives me crazy that they're not telling people this. And I feel like people are really being fooled and it really pisses me off. But you guys need to see this. Let's go to the tweet that I had about 2009. Let's find that. That wasn't too long ago because I know Roger told me to send him the link. Here it is. So I shared that, and then let me pull this up. Where's the article, Sabby? Yeah, is this the one? No, but I have it here. I'll just show it here. This is what you need to see. It's this. I should have sent him the CNBC article. Hold on. I want to give you guys the article because I don't like to just show you that kind of stuff because I want you to be able to find the source. Oh, here it is. Okay. That way, if you want to look this up on your own and share this with other people, you'll have that source. So let me put that there. Yep, there it is. Okay. 2009. This is really scary. I want people to see this. And this is what pisses me off about the Biden administration, because they've been lying to you guys about the jobs and they've been lying to you about the economy. Layoffs rise to the highest for any February since 2009. And we all know what happened in 2009. And it says it right here. Now, CNBC reported this. It says layoff announcements in February this year hit their highest level for the month since the global financial crisis. Since the global financial crisis. So while Joe Biden and Press Secretary Karine Pierre, while they are telling people that the job numbers are great, while they are telling people that the economy is doing great and they created all these jobs, they are totally omitting the layoff crisis that we have in this country. And this was recent. So this article was published February 21st of this year. When it comes to layoffs, they said this is the highest level since 2009 during the global crisis. This is a problem. And that doesn't mean that I like Donald Trump. That means that the Biden administration is lying to you about the job market. And I've been saying this over and over again. And here come the liberals. Oh, she's some secret right winger. Oh, so you want Trump then? You want Trump then? No, I want our government to be held accountable. I want Joe Biden to tell you the damn truth about what's happening with the economy. We're back in 2009 global financial crisis numbers. And it's been out there. It's been out there. Let's talk about, he's talking about these jobs. Don't want to go into a tangent. Let's talk about all these jobs that are posted online that don't even exist. How many of you have applied for jobs online that don't even exist? They're fake positions. But they have to post them to show that they tried to at least hire someone. This has been going on for a long time. Meanwhile, these companies are doing quiet hiring, where they've already given that position to someone that works there internally, and they didn't give them a pay increase for it. They just gave them more damn work. But they had to post the position to show that they at least tried. I've been paying attention. I know because I've done it. I've been the one applying for these jobs that don't even exist. Even internally, I've applied for jobs that don't exist. And then when you go talk to someone in the department and you ask them and say, I applied for the job, I was interested in a position. Oh yeah, that position don't even exist. They've already given that job to someone else. They just didn't change their title and they didn't give them a pay increase. So what are the jobs that Joe Biden created? I can't. So you see why the Dems are freaking out. Let's go to the comment on Rockfin, Eric. Thank you so much for that, Roger. For them to be so surprised shows how much they haven't been paying attention to us shouting Joe sucks. before October 7th and got worse since October 7th, Sab. Reason, they rely on consultants whose forte is campaigning, not governance. So the only thing they have is messaging. An A-plus advertiser team can't make up for a bad movie because they're not responsible for making the movie. That responsibility of production and studio. Well said there. Well said there. Let's go to some of the comments over here. Philip says, why post a non-existent position? Because they have to show that they tried to. It's complicated to explain, but if you talk to someone that works in HR, or maybe someone that used to work in HR and doesn't still work there, because they'd still have to keep their job. But if you talk to someone that used to work in HR before, they can explain this to you how it works. See, like technically, you can't just say, okay, I need someone to do this job, so I'm just going to give it to you. You have to post it and at least give someone else a chance. And their way of doing that is by posting the position, and people apply for the position. And I've seen it done. I've seen it done. I've seen it even when I worked in higher ed. I'm like, why are we posting? Why do we have this position posted for our department and that position has already been given to someone in our office? I saw them do this stuff. And they'll even go so far as sometime they'll bring in people for the interviews, and people actually need a freaking job, and they come in for those interviews and they'll take it all the way to the final round, knowing damn well that position was already given to someone else. They did not change their title and they did not give them a pay raise. Capitalism at its finest. That used to drive me crazy. And I see all these people come in and sit down for a 2 and 3 hour interview, wasting my damn time. Thank you, Dre Harden. If you haven't read the 2 Sapiens book for Yuval Harari, do yourself a favor and get a copy soon. I'll have to check that out, Dre. I got a lot of books to read. I'll have to add that one to my list. Revman Solution says Hillary was supposed to win by 20 points. And that's a good example. Hillary won the popular vote, but lost the election. Retro Gamer says, I love green tea. So do I. I love it. You ever seen the movie Hot Rod, Retro Gamer? You guys ever seen Hot Rod? I've been drinking green tea all the damn day. Thank you, Cool Blue. 2020, Biden carried swing states, Michigan, Nevada, Pennsylvania, Wisconsin, Arizona, and Georgia between 0.23 and plus 2.78, and won the U.S. popular vote by plus 4.45 points. Raw vote margins between plus 10K and plus 154K votes. They will all flip. Cool Blue with the numbers. Thank you, Janice. I'm Indy, voting uncommitted in the Dem primary. Thank you, Stop Sniffing Kids Joe. Trump is going to jail for keeping his sex life private. We're going to get into that tomorrow, Stop Sniffing Kids. We'll get into it tomorrow when I have more time to go through it. And thank you, Jasmine. What bothers me most about AI replacing people is that this tech isn't all that great at what it does. It's mediocre or steals from creative humans. And we're being groomed to accept mediocrity and theft. That's a good point, Jasmine. And thank you, Cosmos. Thanks so much for telling us the truth. You are welcome, Cosmos. Thank you. Cosmos, are you into astrology? Are you? All right. Now, it is time for 3 quick announcements. Yeah, 3 quick announcements that I want you to know about. We got to say rest in peace to Paul Gilman. Lucy tweeted this. Our friend Paul Gilman died last week. Paul supported everyone, and I mean everyone. He fought for Leonard Peltier, against 3 strikes, for Palestine, etc. This was him calling Kennedy out. Paul had a heart condition and died while still in his 50s. So if you may not be familiar with Paul, you might remember me covering this. It was an RFK Jr. event with Rabbi Shmuley, and Paul is the gentleman that stands up and calls out RFK Jr. So yeah, this is one of Paul's best moments here. Check this out.
This is exactly why you're an asshole. Now you're kicking. You got your little dipshit lying, using someone. What a fucking asshole you turn out to be. Stand up. The stupidest thing I ever heard. You see what I just called? Fuck you, asshole. This is what Jews are facing. No, I'm Jewish too, motherfucker. You can see the hatred. You can see the. I love Jews. You hate Palestinians.
So that was Paul being escorted out there. And yeah, that line. Yeah, Robert says, LOL, I like that guy. Yeah, some of you might remember now. So rest in peace, Paul. He really did give RFK Jr. and Rabbi Shmuley the business. So he will be missed. Yes, someone who is a fighter, very, very strong activist. So it was sad to hear that, but we wanted to give a shout out to Paul. And we have another announcement here from the Answer Coalition as well. Just want to remind everyone, get on the bus to DC, surround the White House for Palestine. On June 8th, we'll come together from across the country to show Biden we are the red line. Stop the genocide. So yeah, another rally is happening in DC, surround the White House for Palestine. That is June 8th at 12 p.m. Eastern. And if you go to the link here, Eric can put that in the link for you guys when he gets a moment. Put that in the chat. If you go to the link here, you can actually register for a bus ticket if you don't have your own form of transportation. So they do have buses in a lot of different cities. They've been doing this for a long time to get you there to DC. So that is June 8th, surround the White House for Palestine. And that is hosted by Answer Coalition. And they do show up with a busload of people. They are there. One more announcement, and this is for Friday. Special guest is joining me tomorrow. Danny Haifong will be here. It's been a minute. He is a very, 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 very busy person. Very, very busy person. I actually got the chance to actually hang out with Danny in New York for my birthday and other peeps as well. So he'll be here tomorrow night at 8 p.m. We got a lot to talk about. Danny just recently got back from China, so there's a lot to talk about there, as well as BRICS, et cetera, et cetera. And if you are definitely into geopolitics, make sure you follow Danny's channel. He's been killing the damn thing. He's been doing the game. Check that out, son. All right, couple announcements there. Eric, we can go ahead to part 2. Thank you very much. If you are new, ladies and gentlemen, don't forget to smash the like button and like, sub, and share. Thank you so much. And we're moving on to our next story. Jerry Seinfeld recently had an interview with Bari Weiss. I told you guys before, yes, they are obviously friendly with each other. They're both Zionists. Jerry Seinfeld may be even more cringe than Bari Weiss when it comes to Israel and Gaza, considering he actually participated in an IDF, exercise where he pretended to, this is disgusting, where he actually pretended to, kill like people. It's so gross. It's so gross. Well, now Jerry Seinfeld has an issue with the fact that he's being approached by protesters because of his cringe genocidal positions, and he has a problem with it. So one of the things that's discussed in this interview with him and Bari Weiss is just that, the youth generation.
Everything feels politicized right now.
Yeah.
And so you yourself have become politicized in a way.
A little bit, yeah.
Do you feel that?
I do.
You comfortable with it?
It's so dumb. It's so dumb. In fact, when we get protesters occasionally, I love to say to the audience, I love that these young people, they're trying to get engaged with politics. We have to just correct their aim a little bit.
So you see what he's saying? So he doesn't like the fact that he's been politicized, but he put himself in those positions. You put yourself in that position to be scrutinized and to be politicized when you participate in an IDF training exercise, where you actually go over there to Israel and you pretend to, kill people. You put yourself in that position. You put yourself in that position when you say on stage during your comedy stream, like, oh yeah, the kids in Gaza, and you mock the death of the kids in Gaza. You put yourself in that position. When you choose to be a celebrity, you put yourself in the position to be scrutinized and torn apart by the public. And if you don't want to be criticized, stay your ass in the house. Can't say it better myself. You know who said that? You know who said that, Jerry? Patti LaBelle said that. Patti LaBelle said, if you don't want to be criticized or judged and you're a celebrity, you went into show business. She said, stay your ass in the house. Bari Weiss, another Zionist. She's the one who created the mob of people on social media. She put out the call to attack Professor Rafir, who is dead. So people are pointing fingers at Bari Weiss because of that. Bari Weiss doesn't care about dead Palestinians. She doesn't care that this man was killed by the IDF. Does not care. Bari Weiss, now she has this Coleman Hughes figure, and you guys know how I feel about him. We talked about him. She's got this Coleman Hughes figure. This is not to say that Coleman Hughes is not a smart person. I told you before, I think Coleman believes everything that he's saying. But what I will tell you is I think that Bari Weiss chose him because of what he's saying. So now she found someone who had a black face to go out there and spew the Zionist lies and rhetoric for her so that people can point to him and say, that black guy thinks so. And then some would argue whether or not Coleman Hughes is actually black, but we can get into that another day. We went through that before. Let's continue on with the interview.
They don't seem to understand that as comedians, we really don't control anything.
Right, right.
No one's really...
no, you're pulling the strings over the war in Gaza.
Yeah.
Right? That's how I think of it.
Yeah.
Let's pause there when he says we really don't control anything. Jerry Seinfeld isn't going to say in this interview that his wife is the one that funded, and I'll show you this. His wife is one of the people that funded the counter protesters that showed up at UCLA and beat the peaceful pro-Palestinian protesters at the encampments on camp. He won't tell you that. But they don't control anything. Because he's just a comedian, he's not controlling anything. He's not telling you what he's doing behind the scenes, who he's giving money to, who he's contributing to, who he's working along with. That was Bari Weiss's wife, Jerry Seinfeld's wife, and Bill Ackman, who funded those groups. So there's that. So for Jerry Seinfeld to sit here and pretend like, oh, I'm just a comedian. You're not just a comedian, and he knows that. You are a very prominent figure. Everybody that I know knows who you are or has heard of you because you had one of the most successful TV shows, which, by the way, was not funny because of Jerry. Jerry, you were not funny. Larry David is why you had the Seinfeld show. Do people know this? That's where Jerry Seinfeld comes from. But you were not funny, Jerry. The supporting actors on Seinfeld were funnier than you. Yes. George was funnier than you. Elaine was funnier than you. Kramer was funnier than you. Even though Kramer, real life Kramer, Michael Richardson, went on to say some racist things towards black kids at Harvard, but that's a whole other story. But those characters were funnier than you. You were just the name. Let's go on.
You've done a bunch of shows. Obviously, you're constantly doing shows. You did one in Syracuse in December that attracted protesters. And then they were chanting that you're complicit in genocide. Then when I gave this talk in February at the Y, there was this footage of you where they were calling you a genocide supporter and Nazi scum. And the thing that jumped out at me was not the things they were saying, of course, because they say it to anyone.
Yeah.
It's that you were smiling and waving and genuinely seemed to be enjoying yourself.
Yeah.
Were you?
Yeah, because he is a genocidal supporter.
Yeah.
Why?
It's so silly. It's like, you know, they wanna express this, you know, sincere, intense rage, but again, a little off target.
Right. Right.
Little off target. So that's, to me, comedic. You know.
You were in Israel.
Yeah.
How is it off target? Eric, if you can see, if you can find that, if not, I'll pull it up. The tweet with Jerry Seinfeld when he's with the IDF. How is it all off target when you are literally doing training exercises with the IDF? How is it off target? It's not off target. It's not. These are things that Jerry Seinfeld chose to do.
Since the war started. How was that trip?
The most powerful experience of my life.
Really?
I'm sure. Yeah.
Why?
You know, you just. You know.
Are you thinking of someone in particular?
Sorry.
One thing.
Here come the tears. See, here we go. Here we go. And see, Jerry wants you to feel sorry for his tears, but he don't feel sorry for the tears of people, Palestinian Americans, that have cried because they've lost entire family lines in Gaza. He's just like, oh, the kids in Gaza. He doesn't care, but he wants you to feel his tears.
That I've been thinking about is how a huge part of the way you think about comedy is how the audience never lies.
Right.
But what happens if a lot of people are wrong? In other words, I don't think Jews do well in an age of mobs. And I feel that right now in our culture, it's really easy to form mobs.
Yes, really easy.
And what's the difference between the audience never lying, but when does the audience kind of tip into the mob? Do you see where I'm going with that?
I do.
There's something.
Yeah.
But I really have been wanting to ask you about, like, for someone that relies on the truth telling of the audience to tell you whether or not something is funny. What does that same principle apply to a mass of people? You see what I mean?
First of all, to Bari Weiss, how are a lot of people wrong? A lot of people are not wrong, right? So I cannot say this enough. Jerry Seinfeld is not oppressed. Bari Weiss is not oppressed. If you were to put both of them in a room with me, I can run off a list of things to their face that I've had to experience in my life that they never, ever had to deal with simply because of the color of their skin. They are not oppressed. Jerry Seinfeld is here trying to make himself seem like the victim. You wanted to be a celebrity, Jerry. You've been a comedian for years. When have you ever met a comedian that did not have someone in the audience say something to them that maybe pissed them off? That's the risk you take with being a comedian. It hasn't just happened with you. It's happened with Kevin Hart. It's happened with Tiffany Haddish. It happened with Eddie Murphy. It happened with Richard Pryor. And by the way, bringing up Eddie Murphy and Richard Pryor, we want to talk about comedians, people who are actually funny, Jerry, which you are not. And neither is Amy Schumer either. Amy Schumer also is not funny. I don't understand how some people in comedy they blew up with these big careers. funny. They all have had it. Dave Chappelle had a guy jump out of the audience and attack him on stage. But Bari is sad and heartbroken and troubled because someone called him out on his genocidal bullshit. Thanks, Eric. I'll pull it up in a second.
Well, you can't act like we don't see this every day in many realms. Let's just talk politically, left and right. You're watching mobs. They're mobs.
Mm-hmm.
They're mobs believing their own crap, right?
Yeah.
That's what a political party is. We're going to make up a bunch of nonsense and we'll all agree to it, right? Right. Okay, let's print up some bumper stickers and get out there, kids. That's politics.
So now protesters, according to Jerry Seinfeld, are mobs. So for the protesters that protested in DC for the pro-Israel rally, are they mobs too, Jerry? Or is it only the people that were protesting for the Palestinians? Rich ass, wealthy Jerry Seinfeld is not oppressed. You wanted to be a celebrity. This is what comes with that.
So we're tribal animals. We're social creatures. We look for agreement and consensus. We're driven by agreement and consensus, and mob rule gives us comfort, gives us certainty.
Yeah.
It's all BS. It's all BS.
I think.
Where is Jerry Seinfeld's black friends in Hollywood that love Jerry Seinfeld so much? Where are they at on this? Where's Chris Rock? Where are you at on this? What Jerry Seinfeld has been doing. We'll finish what she says here, and I'm going to show you what he did with the IDF.
There's something like almost genetic about comedians that make them allergic to that.
Yeah. Yeah.
Do you think it is? Like, where does that come from inside of you?
The thing that you are incredibly fortunate enough to have, if you spend your life in comedy and do well at it, the gift that you were given is you see through the surface of everything.
Except when it comes to Israel. So let me show you what he did with the IDF, because see, Jerry Seinfeld is mad because protesters are approaching him, but Jerry Seinfeld doesn't want to tell you what he did that is making those protesters approach him. Now, shout out to Code Pink for capturing this. Comedian Jerry Seinfeld visited an anti-terrorist training camp with his family in an illegal Israeli settlement in the occupied West Bank. Shared to tell that Seinfeld that Israeli occupation and military violence is no laughing matter. So, but you took this picture, Jerry. You decided to pose beside this IDF soldier. You decided to do that. And now you are mad because people are questioning your position on this issue, which they have every right to do. Every right to do. Here's another one. Because the tears don't work for me. You can dry the tears. Justin Timberlake said, cry me a river, because it don't work for me. So you can see it here as well. So here we go again. This is Jerry Seinfeld at Caliber 3, an Israeli shooting range in an illegal settlement that uses cutouts of Palestinians for target practice. This is what Jerry Seinfeld participated in. And he's mad because people, so you see? And he's mad at everybody else because you question him for what he chose to do. If you just wanted to focus on your comedy, Why were you there, Jerry? Why were you there? And then there was the issue with his wife, with the funding. Like I said before, Jessica Seinfeld, she says, don't blame me for the UCLA counter protest. Seinfeld donated $5,000 to a pro-Israel counter protest at UCLA. That was the protest where the kids came in and they beat people. The kids were bleeding. On Sunday evening, she sought to distance herself from violence against pro-Palestine demonstrators at the school. So that's Jerry Seinfeld's wife. She chose to do that. She chose to donate that money to that organization. Then Jessica shared a second post tackling another hot button issue, her bankrolling of a pro-Israel counter protest at UCLA that occurred before a violent mob targeted a pro-Palestinian encampment on April 30th. During that disturbing episode, campus security looked on and police didn't respond for hours as pro-Israel assailants attacked protesters. So you guys remember the video footage that you saw that happened at UCLA? They funded that. But he wants to know why people are upset with him. You know, I get tired of the lies. And so rightfully so, Jerry Seinfeld was called out at his show. At his show. Listen to him mock the children of Gaza at the end.
This is my wife's addition to my show this evening.
Save the children of Gaza! No more American tax dollars for genocide!
Shut up!
Save the children of Gaza!
Shut up! Shut up and get out!
You're a genocide supporter!
What's that?
You're a genocide supporter! You should be ashamed of yourself! We should all be ashamed! How dare you! How dare you support a genocide! How dare you support a genocide! You fucking asshole! Get out, get out, get out, get out. How dare you support a genocide!
Hey, hey! Let go of him!
Stop.
Let go of him!
Go over there. You're ruining for everybody else. Go. Go. Go.
So do you see, this is what Jerry Seinfeld said. He said, I like it when the Jew hater spice up the show. So do you see what he just did? Because that individual in the audience said, save the children of Gaza, you're a genocide supporter. Notice how Jerry Seinfeld twisted that and said that he was hating Jewish people.
Genocide supporter!
You're gonna break his neck.
Oh my God! What are you doing?
Save the children of Gaza! Save the children of Gaza! Open your eyes!
All right, I'm going to keep going. Save the children of Gaza.
So you see how he mocked that at the end? Save the children of Gaza. Who pays to see Jerry Seinfeld do stand-up comedy? As I said before, he's not funny. So you can't get upset when people approach you because of the things that you've done. Why are some of these celebrities this way? You know, Caitlin Johnstone, she wrote an interesting article about this. Make sure you follow her on Substack, you guys. She writes some pretty base stuff. And she doesn't just, obviously we're not just calling out Jerry Seinfeld. One of the most obvious ones, which is DJ Khaled, who is Palestinian, has said nothing. And a lot of us have concluded that's because he's in business with Zionists as well. So he don't want to mess up his money train. DJ Khaled ain't said a damn thing about what's happening to people in Gaza. So I want to dive into this here, why celebrities aren't speaking up about Gaza. So let's go in here. I want to make this a little bit bigger. There's two parts I want to focus on here. For the last 8 months, people have been expressing frustration and confusion about the reluctance of celebrities to use their immense platforms to speak out against the U.S.-backed slaughter in Gaza. But it's really not a mystery. Make this a little bit bigger. It's really not a mystery why this happens. Celebrities are reluctant to criticize the U.S. centralized empire because they benefit from it directly. This is incredibly true. We'll go on a little bit more. It's actually a very important aspect of imperial narrative control, how all of our society's largest and most influential voices are intimately dependent on the political status quo upon which the empire is built. Fame and fortune come as a result of being elevated by wealthy owners of media production platforms like film studios, record labels, TV, and news media. And those extremely wealthy people have a vested interest in maintaining the status quo upon which their wealth is premised. This is also probably why you will not hear Kevin Hart speak out about this issue, because he is very much in line with corporate powers. There was an interview recently on Club Shay Shay with Gary, I forget Gary's last name, another comedian, Gary, sorry, Gary, I forgot your last name, where he talked about why some comedians don't say the things that he says because of who they're in business with. It goes on to say here, those who are threatening to the status quo are therefore not elevated to celebrity status. And ones who get rich and famous either, A, understand this is acutely, or are too shallow and vapid to have any interest in rocking the imperial boat. Nobody becomes a superstar on their own. It requires an extensively collaborative relationship with many individuals, and many of the most important of these are in positions of great wealth and power and have no desire to see socialism or anti-imperialism threaten their kingdoms by gaining a foothold in the political realities of their nation. This creates an impressively thorough gatekeeping system, which filters out any clear-eyed rebels who might otherwise shine their way to the top. And this is why there are certain people you don't see on mainstream media. This is why there are certain people that never get to that celebrity status, because if their voice is considered to be too radical, or let's say they speak out against imperialism, those people will not be elevated, at least not by that status quo. Some of them may get there on their own, but those are far and few. And then how long will they stay there? Of course, the filtration system isn't perfect. Sometimes someone sneaks through, or more likely is waved through and then has a political awakening after achieving stardom. But for every Susan Sarandon and Roger Waters, there are 100 enthusiastic celebrity supporters of the status quo and 1,000 others who just stay silent on all matters of real importance. This part here, when Macklemore rapped about how the music industry's quiet, complicit in their platform of silence about Gaza, he asked, what happened to the artists? What do you got to say? And this is the answer. What happened to most influential artists is that they stand too much to gain from supporting the status quo politics of the empire and stand too much to lose by opposing it. And that is 100%. And this is why you don't hear a lot of celebrities speaking up about this issue. And if they do, they are repeating the status quo narrative, which is supporting Israel at all costs. Eric has put the link to that article by Caitlin Johnstone in the chat if you want to read the rest of that on your own. But she is spot on there. A lot of them are very much a part of and they benefit from that status quo system. All right, let's go to some of the comments here. Thank you, Mad Matt. I remember that video. Great heart, R.I.P. Paul. I know, Paul was so vocal. Thank you, Troy. Giving Queen of Hearts counsel with your top today. Oh, man. You guys are funny. Thank you, Cool Blue. Sociopath Seinfeld. 2020's reboot of the 1990s calm. Yeah, I could see that, right? Man, you know, if I knew how some of these celebrities felt about imperialism and genocide, I would have never watched these shows. Like, I really wouldn't have. Man, it makes me feel some kind of way. And where's Chris Rock, by the way? Chris Rock, what do you have to say about your friend Jerry Seinfeld? Chris also benefits from the status quo. Fatima says George was the funniest. Exactly. You know, it's like you're the star of the show, but the co-stars are funnier than you are. Thank you, Ava, Session 7. F the unfunny comedian. Thanks for censoring my original message. Why boob? Why boob? Boob? It wasn't me. All right. Thank you for the super chat, Roger. Ohio BI. Yeah, I'm finishing that tomorrow, Roger. The Ohio BIs, because we're doing call-in tonight. And let me get the comments on Rockfin. All right. Thank you for the tip on Rockfin, JVB. Yes, Sabby is a phenomenon. Oh, thank you. Thank you, Hemp Car. I heard the last episode of Seinfeld, the cast watch an old lady get mugged and they did nothing. Is it a show about nothing or a show about terrible people? I never watched it. I guess if you're Jewish, you can do no wrong. One rabbi said they should use Arab terrorists for experiments, The End of Days by Gershom Gornberg, Oxford University Press. I wouldn't say Jewish, I would say Zionists. I think we need to, make sure we make that distinction. But, okay, thank you. Tia said, I think she was talking to YouTube. Oh. Sorry. Oh man, it's silly times. All right, guys, we have one more story for you and then we will get into call in. Go ahead and smash the like button if you haven't had a chance to do so, and we'll go into the Candace story here. All right, crazy times, folks. So Candace Owens has decided to break her silence. Now, this comes after she was issued a gag order from the Daily Wire. Glenn Greenwald was the one that reported this first initially, if I remember correctly. Apparently, the Daily Wire did issue a gag order against Candace Owens, which basically says that she is not allowed to talk about this firing with the Daily Wire. So she cannot talk about what happened, whether it was conversations that took place between all of them in reference to the firing. So she could not speak. So when people have reached out to her and asked her, we would like to hear your side of the story, her response is, I'm not allowed to discuss this. Now, there was supposed to be a debate between Ben and Candace, but it turns out, according to that report from Glenn Greenwald, that was just a bait, right? So they baited Candace by making her think there was going to be a debate. And the conversation went back and forth on Twitter, and they actually used her tweets against her as part of the gag order. So, it was a really grimy, sneaky thing to do. It was really messed up, right? And I am not a Candace Owens fan at all, but that was messed up. That was really, that was shady. That was Melrose Place shady. That was General Hospital shady. That was 90210 shady. Either way, it was shady. That was messed up. Well, Candace said enough is enough, and she is speaking out. I don't know if this is going to hurt her legally because she has the gag order, but she said enough is enough, and she has some things to say. So here we go. This already has over 1 million views.
All right. I don't think I have done a live on Twitter or live on X rather in such a long time that you obviously have to know that this is something that is really upsetting me for me to be able to jump on here. I think I have, when I say tried to take the high road over the last couple of months to the point that it has given me a nosebleed, I have like nothing left here, and there is so much that I would like to say, and there is so much that I am fighting for my right to say. But today, I just feel like we crossed into another territory. Everyone can see what's happening. Everyone can at first see the public attacks on me over my, I shouldn't even say it's a belief, just the truth that Christ is king, and something that I will never stop saying as a Christian, nothing that I will apologize for. But these attacks against me and my character have not stopped. And I think partially it's being driven by the fact that they have not been successful. It has not, there's obviously a very real attempt to smear and to libel me out of existence, to make my audience not want to follow me anymore. And there is an entire network working behind the scenes to make that happen. But a couple of days ago, my PR person received a tip from someone that a Daily Mail journalist who I had never heard of was asking weird questions about me, like basically working on a hit piece. Now, I want to be clear here. I do not at all blame the journalist. I don't blame the Daily Mail. I read the Daily Mail. I used to write op-eds for the Daily Mail. So I am not saying this as like, I'm here just the Daily Mail. I understand that when somebody is leaking stories and claiming to have an inside track or some inside knowledge about someone, it is tempting for a journalist to get involved. But
let me pause for a second. Now, she has to say that she's not, obviously trying to smear them because of that gag order. So I think that's why she's saying that. One thing I do want to say too, which is when we talk about the numbers and the views, from what I understand, she had one of the most popular shows on the Daily Wire. I think she was getting more views than Ben Shapiro's show, which, sometimes there can be jealousy afoot. So I think that that could have been part of it too. I don't think this is just about her not supporting Israel or her not putting Israel first or being pro-Israel or saying Christ is king. I think this is a numbers game too. So that could have something to do with it as well.
This level, I've just never seen anything just more fictitious and made up. And someone that is going to publish something or thinks that they have a story here when everything that they have learned has been wrong. So I'm going to read you the email that I received from this Daily Mail reporter, because we were like, what is this about? Like, actually, what could you possibly be writing about that hasn't already been written about me leaving the Daily Wire? Well, here's what they wrote. I am currently writing a story focused on how Candace Owens came to leave the Daily Wire. Oh, okay. I wonder what or who is behind the story. Any response, either in an official statement or from sources close to Candace on the following information, would be greatly appreciated. We have heard from multiple sources that Candace's dismissal from the Daily Wire was in large part, quote unquote, financial. That her show just wasn't making the company enough money to justify continuing her employment.
So think about what I just told you. And does that make sense to you that her show wasn't making enough money? She had like the most popular show on the Daily Wire. So let me tell you what happens here, right? First, they tried to punish Candace by telling the world she made anti-Semitic statements, right? And that didn't work with Candace's viewers. Like, her audience didn't turn on her because they were like, nah, that's not cool. That's not what happened. Then they tried to say that they had to remove her because of the Christ is king phrase, etc. That didn't work on our audience either, because I'm assuming a lot of them are Christian, right? Considering the base that typically would watch the Daily Wire, I'm considering a lot of them are Christian. So that didn't really work in their favor either. So then the next thing that they decide to do, okay, what else can we come up with as a legitimate reason as for why we had to fire her? And then they decide to bring up the finances. She just wasn't making enough money. That also goes into your performance. She wasn't performing as well. She just wasn't bringing in the revenue. So now they bring up the finances and all that kind of stuff. That's another thing that they'll try to pull. And we'll get to the other one that they do, which is not uncommon for Black women or for Black people, period. Listen to this.
It is also claimed that she, quote unquote, blamed producers for her show's failures and that she refused to work with certain advertisers. We have also heard that senior management felt they had a moral obligation to terminate Candace's employment due to what has been described as her increased anti-Semitism and her conspiracy theories.
Pause. So did you see what they have added to the mix all of a sudden now? Now all of a sudden she was a hostile employee. I never worked at the Daily Wire. I've never met any of these people. I can't tell you if anyone's been hostile behind the scenes or not. But I think it's interesting that this wasn't said in the beginning. So when the other two methods did not work, now it's okay, she wasn't bringing in enough money. And oh, by the way, she was a hostile employee. She was angry. So here comes the angry Black woman trope. Now, Candace may not want to see it that way, but this has been done before. This has been done before. So if the other methods do not work, they will then move to assassinate your character. This ain't the first person this has been done to. This has been done to multiple people. Let's try to get the audience, the people, to turn against them. And if the other ways that they try don't work, they will move to assassinate your character. So now they're trying to make it seem like to the viewers that she was this hostile or the angry Black woman behind the scenes. Character assassination, something Candace knows quite a bit about, because you know what the irony is in all this, Candace did this too. Let's continue. We'll get to that.
Others have said that Candace was mean to and mistreated the junior staff members at the Daily Wire, including, ready guys, makeup artists and interns.
There's the angry Black woman. What did I tell you guys? What did I tell you? What did I tell you? Remember when Sam Cedar debated Breonna Joy Gray? And then after he terribly lost that debate about force the vote, he went to Twitter and all of a sudden he said she was yelling and screaming at me, use the angry Black woman trope against her. This is what they're doing. Again, she may not want to say that because that may not go over well with some of her audience members, bringing up the racial issue. But that's exactly what they're doing. Jesus Christ.
One source described a scene in which Candace allegedly threw a canned drink at someone. Okay. This is sending me. I'm now throwing canned drinks at employees, mean to junior employees, yelling at the makeup artists. Separately, what would Candace say to claims that she has been homophobic and anti-Semitic, particularly on her social media, and that she has peddled conspiracy theories? So here is what is clearly happening. The attacks on me over me not backing down on being a Christian are failing. So now we're just moving to full-on character mischaracterizations. I have worked in politics for now 8 years. If you think that if there is a single person that wishes to come forward and to say that I mistreated them, I welcome you to do it. I am the exact opposite human being. This is the most absurd thing that I've ever read in my entire life. The idea that I threw a canned drink at someone and it was fine and it just flew, like that employee didn't have a lawsuit that they could have, like, it is literally just invented in someone's head as part of a character attack on me. Now, I will tell you this, I am unbelievably close to my team at the Daily Wire. I am still close.
Pause for a second. So again, I doubt that Candace will ever see this, but if she does, they are using the angry Black woman trope against you. That is exactly what they're doing. This has been done to multiple people. They've done it to Black men too. They did this to Terrence Howard. Terrence Howard he's difficult to work with. That's the professional term, right? The professional phrase, difficult to work with. Doesn't get along with too many people. Why? Because he asked for more money for a role? difficult to work with. So they are assassinating Candace's character. And the reason why they're doing this is because they are trying to prevent her from moving on with whatever project she has planned after the Daily Wire. Remember, she decided to take a break. She said, I'm going to take a break and I'll come back stronger than ever with a new project. They are trying to prevent that, fam. They are trying to make it so that Candace Owens will never have an audience again. And to me, that sounds like cancel culture, which I don't approve of. You ain't got to be a fan of Candace. You ain't even got to watch Candace. But what they are doing, the lengths that they're going to make it so that she can't continue, this is insane. This is wild. She's fired. She's not with them anymore. Why are they still talking? Why are they still going after her? Think about it, fam.
Close with my team at the Daily Wire. I still speak to my team at the Daily Wire. In fact, this past weekend, I was at the wedding of the most junior person at the Daily Wire, this young girl named Markella, who I absolutely love to work with every day. The makeup artist left the Daily Wire with me and is still working with me. Her name is Evelyn. My producer, my executive producer, I had the same one for the entire time I was at Daily Wire. She is on maternity leave. And when I just called her and told her this, she was like, nobody contacted me for this story, and I am your executive producer. Like, who is planting the story, right? So I am not going to speculate because I don't need to speculate. I think everybody can see clearly what is happening here. Everybody knows what is going on here, and we're getting to the point where this is just torturous interference. This is basically like, I want to make it so that nobody will work with you, and since I know that Candace is a really hard worker, and I know that people actually love her and that her entire team loves her, we're going to pretend it's the opposite so that other people who might want to work with her go, maybe not. She's like throwing canned drinks at people.
That is the blackball tactic. And the people have done this in Hollywood as well. But that's the blackball tactic. Nobody else wants to work with you after they hear these stories or after this article, the story is published that she's referring to. Then no one else is going to want to work with you. That's fine. She can work by herself. She may not be used to doing that, but I mean, a lot of us that do this, I mean, I have Eric and Corey who help me in the background with our production. Actually, Eric helps with producing. Corey does the clips and things like that. But Eric and Corey can both tell you, when I started this show, I didn't have anybody to help. I didn't have a producer or anything. I did it by myself. When you see us over at Revolutionary Blackout Network, we don't have a producer. We don't have anybody in the background, right? So she can do it herself. She may not be used to that, but that's what they're trying to do.
Just gets angry at makeup artists and just like throws a soda pop. She's just like, take this Coca-Cola. I don't like the way my lashes are done today. That is the actual phase that we are at now, in the absolute desperation to defame me and to tarnish my name for the simple fact that I won't be apologizing for saying Christ is King. Christ is King, my friends. We're saying Merry Christmas again, and we're saying Christ is King, okay? So go on. Write the article. I responded fully and gave them proof and contacts of every single person on my team that they could speak to directly. Shockingly, they didn't contact not only my producer, my associate producer, the junior associate. Nobody that actually worked on my day-to-day team for 3 years was contacted. So who's leaking this? What do you guys think? Who do you guys think is leaking this story, suggesting that I would ever mistreat an employee ever? It's not in my DNA, okay? You guys know I'm my granddad's girl. Like, my grandfather was a janitor that swept floors. The idea, the concept of me treating someone badly that is an employee, I would rather die into myself than treat someone.
You don't have to go there. Like, you ain't even got to say all that. Candace, you ain't even got to say I'm my grandfather's girl and all that kind of stuff. If someone's lying, they're just blatantly lying. Like, see, now she has to try to convince people that that's not how she is. That's not who she is because of this information that she's received. But for people that do know her, if they know that's not how she is, then you ain't got to. If people believe it, then they believe it. But for the people who know you, and if they know that that's not how you are, don't even try to spend your time trying to convince people that may think that is what you did.
everybody badly. I have the opposite problem. I'm actually too nice sometimes. It's not easy for me, even when people, should be reprimanded. I usually pawn that task off to my husband because I don't like to do it. It makes me uncomfortable. I want people to be happy. It's why nobody ever leaves me. This is why the people that work with me have worked with me for years, like actual years, from my creative director to my assistant, who's now my manager. People stick around because I treat them well. And I take a lot of pride in that. So the worst part of this hit piece to me, forget the part about saying I'm anti-Semitic, racist, that's just like it's 2024. You got to catch them all. You're being called that every week. But to suggest that I would ever treat people badly, I'm not going to stand for that. I'm literally just not going to stand for that. So that's it. Christ is Lord. And I just wanted to update you guys on that. And like I said, I am fighting for my voice. And when my show comes back in a couple of weeks, I'm gonna breathe some fire like a dragon, because to me, it's just time. And I, again, have tried to be so calm and take the high road and allow everybody to be speaking about me and speaking about my life for months. But this is just a bridge too far. Thanks, guys.
So I don't know if that will actually be an issue with her gag order, but that was her defending herself. And there was another thing that she showed as well. I do want to show you this picture. She said, fighting back tears with this one, my executive producer for all 3 years at the Daily Wire, who I allegedly blamed for all my failures. So there's a picture of Candace with the woman that was her executive producer. They look pretty friendly there. So there's that. However, what's being done to Candace in reference to the character assassination, we have to remember Candace did the same thing. And I want to show you an example, right? First of all, check out this video. Now I want you to see who is sitting around her when this conversation takes place. Now this is going back to George Floyd. Okay? Because you see, as much as they are assassinating Candace's character right now, we have to remember Candace Owens assassinated George Floyd's character as well. Some people forget, I didn't. And look at who's sitting around the table with her when it happens. Watch this, guys.
Hear from Speaker Pelosi herself, speaking in front of the Capitol at a Congressional Black Caucus presser. Thank you, George Floyd, for sacrificing your life for justice. Wow. Because of you and because of thousands, millions of people around the world who came out for justice, your name will always be synonymous for justice.
Oh, wow. Lord. That's a religious cult. I was going to say, did she then say, give us prerogative? This is literal.
Right. Drug addict. Yeah. Okay, he was a drug addict. He abused women. He abused men. This is disgusting. That is, it actually grosses me out. Do we have no better examples to put forward in the Black community? When you think of the word justice, you think of George Floyd. I mean, how?
Pause for a second. Because we have to remember that Candace Owens made that statement before Nancy Pelosi made that statement about George Floyd. When the George Floyd protest started, remember Candace Owens made a quick video. It looked like it was made on her phone and said, he's a drug addict. So that means he deserved to be killed. Don't we have a criminal justice system for a reason that you claim to believe in? Don't people deserve to have their day in court? That was character assassination that Candace Owens did about George Floyd. Now, whether or not you feel that George Floyd should be the hero of the Black community, that's a totally different discussion. But what Candace did here with George Floyd, the way that she assassinated his character, it's the same way that these men sitting around this table with her are assassinating her character now.
How far we have fallen since Martin Luther King. It honestly makes me sick. It makes me sick. It's so upsetting to me as a Black person to see what is coming out as representative of the Black community, what we are told we should be holding up. Do you think those words will be written when Clarence Thomas dies? Do you think those words will be written when Thomas Sowell dies? Do you think those words will be written when Dr. Condoleezza Rice dies? That's why I asked the question, why? It's almost like they are trying to intentionally pivot the attention of Black Americans into celebrating degeneracy. At every turn, right?
They think of Black people.
Whether it's whether it's culture. This is.
So you see who this is? So here's the other guy who fired her. So you see this? They loved you, Candace. They loved you when you were doing this. They loved it when you were doing it. when you were doing this in reference to, and when you were saying this about a black man, they loved you then, Candace. All of them sitting around the table just smiling and nodding and cashing checks. And they were the first ones to let you go. They loved it. Loved you.
Who we're going to name Woman of the Year, right? Cardi B. Whether it's talking about, civil justice. George Floyd is now the emblematic of civil justice. He's so brave. What he sacrificed his life. I mean, there is something very sinister and very disgusting happening right now in this country in terms of how they are trying to pollute black minds. And it goes all the way from the education system and critical race theory to these disgusting words. And I will call them disgusting because they are, and they are false. George Floyd died. He was a drug addict, period. Whether you have an opinion about whether Derek Chauvin, should have spent some time in prison, yes or no, we should all agree that this man is not emblematic of justice.
Right.
I mean, it infuriates me.
Karma is a motherfucker. Karma. Notice she mentioned Cardi B. Let's go back to that part real quick, because I want to point something out about the Cardi B thing. Hold on. Let's see if I
get the attention of black Americans into celebrating degeneracy at every turn, right?
They think of black people.
Whether it's culture. This is who we're going to name Woman of the Year, right? Cardi B.
Cardi B. So Cardi B is black now? See, this is a whole other discussion. We had to do a whole separate show for this. That's a whole separate discussion. Everybody see what's happening? But all the men sitting around this table, oh, Candace, they were totally fine with you then. There's Ben Shapiro. There's Matt. And I think this is Jeremy Boring. I think that's either Jeremy or Andy. Anyway, all of them, they loved you then. You were one of them. They let you have a seat at the table. Literally, she's sitting at the table. And the moment she decided to criticize the killing of children, the slaughter of children in Gaza, the moment she decided not to be pro-Israel or to put Israel first, the moment she decided to say the words Christ is king, the moment she decided to question what Israel was doing, they were done with her. And now they're trying to make it to the point where nobody else will want to deal with her again in this industry. So they're trying to ruin her for life, fam. But karma is a bitch. Character assassination is the lowest of the low. And I say that because if you're trying to convince people that what someone did was wrong, all you need to do is just focus on what was done. When it gets to the point where you're starting to attack their character and call someone a drug addict, or like they're calling Candace now, they're calling her basically the angry black woman without saying those words. It's just the lowest of the low, man. But that's karma. So she is speaking out. Interesting. Eric, let's take a look at that poll. I'm curious. All right. Poll results. Uh-oh. The numbers are changing again. Are you concerned about AI taking over jobs? 58% said yes. 29% said no. And 14% of you said don't know enough about it to say. This is a pretty interesting poll. That's pretty interesting. Oh, sorry. 600. Wait a minute. Number 1,603 votes. Sorry, the number kept changing. 4. You guys are just playing with me now. Somebody added a vote, took a vote away. Added a vote, took away. Okay, we will do calling, guys. Eric's gonna hop on for a second. I'm gonna take a quick break. I'll be back, and we'll do the damn thing. Yeah.
All right. Here we go to the part of the show where we give Sabby a little break, and I jump in from the background to the foreground. Eric T. Red here, and read out some of your chats and maybe talk about a few things. Let's see what we got for some of these chats that have built up. Let's see. Thanks for the super chat or super sticker, Brian. I appreciate that. Got this chat from Rashida saying she had reached 3 million plus subscribers before parting ways. Yeah, you're gonna wonder, like, isn't Candace Owens a lot bigger than the Daily Wire? So we'll see how that plays out. And Sherry said, Sabby, you need to have Candace on your show. That would be a great conversation. Yeah, I don't know if Candace would be ready for that one. From Roger Meadows, thanks for the super chat, saying Monique Sab. I assume that connects to something earlier, but I will probably hear from Roger in the Zoom hangout that'll be coming up next. Oh yes, this is where we transition to the Zoom hangout. Will be Sabby's setting it up now, the Zoom room. We'll be posting the link. You can jump into that. And we want to hear from you. The camera on off is optional, either way you want to do it. But we have a good conversation out there on the Zoom hangout. It's coming up soon. Notori Lee said, I'm pretty sure she knows what they're doing, but she don't want to use that is black. That won't go well with her audience, and I don't even think she sees herself as a black woman. And NY Varsity Sports said they said that about Rhonda Rousey. And Lance said her job was character assassination of black men who get killed by racists. Yeah, there's that whole karma thing of what's coming around. But the other part of it is, I think Candace Owens is trying to keep the gig going, and drama is good for clicks, keeping her in the news, all that stuff. Thanks for the super chat from Microaggression. I think this is a marketing ploy for her new show. Yeah, and just keep everything going. And thanks for this super chat. Where is the love? Candace deserves every effing kick in. All right, thanks for that super chat. Yeah, so when we hit into the Zoom hangout, we can be talking about the things that were the subjects of the show, or we can be or really anything you want. But one of the things that certainly came up was the whole AI thing. One of the things you always got to realize first, for starters, with AI is that it is like consistently oversold. Its capabilities. There were some, I think, fellow kind of coder software people in the chat kind of saying, AI is not doing code. And, I think that's basically the case. AI just isn't nearly at that level. I would put it this way. You can't even have like an AI android, like clean the house or do the laundry from start to finish. When you start having, AI and AI driven type, technology be able to do things like that, then talk to me about it then, as far as, how smart and, incredibly capable, AI is. So like, coders, you don't have to worry about AI taking their jobs for a long time. But there's this whole concept of taking their jobs. It's what I like to say about every technology is that it's a mistake to focus too much on the tech itself, of what it does or how it operates and whatnot. What's really important with really any technology is who is in control of it, who benefits from the technology. So right now we have this whole system where the billionaires basically are controlling everything, and they're controlling the technology and AI. And so, as long as they're in control, it's going to be shitty. That's what it comes down to. Yes, they are going to have AI take over jobs and just because it'll do them cheaper and have no good replacement jobs or replacement roles. If we have a better system and a better world where the 99% are really in charge through a real democracy and making decisions about how AI will be used, it could actually be a great thing. There are a whole lot of jobs and tasks that humans do right now that a lot of people really don't want to do. And having, automation, I think of like the example of a washing machine, right? Before we had washing machines, you had a whole lot of people, mostly women, doing laundry by hand, and it's not a fun job. And so laundry machine washing machine and the dryer, just help these things a lot. But if you have, billionaires and a whole capital interest in control, and they say you can only have laundry machines at a laundromat and pay $100 per load, then it's like not such a great thing. So yeah, always I'd say keep that in mind. It's about how the technology is used, and it could be, I think on the left and people like us, we should have a vision of a world, and we should paint the vision of that world where AI and these technologies are used for good things. They're doing the jobs that that most humans don't want to do, and then we have a world where work is more of an option, where the basic needs are met for everyone, full stop, no period. And then what we can have for humans are the better jobs. You can have more cerebral jobs. We can put more people into roles like research and medical, and you can even have interesting tech things, and just put people into jobs that are more fulfilling and more interesting, and leave the crappy jobs for the AI. And if some people still want to do jobs that most people won't, let them do that too. But it's really about choice, and having it be the choice of the people who work for a living, the 99%, and not the choice of just the billionaires running everything. And I'll just say it again, this is our break where we're transitioning into the Zoom Hangout, and we'll be posting the link for that. Sabby usually posts it to the pin chat. Yeah, it's up there. It's the pin chat. You can start getting into the room. Get in the room. Let me adjust this layout. Let me pick the right one. There we go.
All right.
It's time for the big Zoom Hangout. Hey, what are we going to talk about? Nothing happening, is there?
So much stuff. Now I'll get into more of the Trump thing tomorrow night. So I'll get into that more tomorrow night, because I know I showed that short clip of his speech, but I'll get into more of it tomorrow night when I have time to look over everything. But we are going to head into the Sabby after show call-in segment. This is on Zoom. So that link is now pinned to the top of the chat. You should be able to see that there. And there's a little passcode. The passcode is here at the bottom of the screen, 275887. So let me go ahead and I like to open the room while I'm on the show. What was that? Something fell. Anyway, I like to open the room while I'm on the show. So let me go ahead and open that. Make sure people are able to get in. And all I ask is that you mute your mic when you enter the room, please. I've had that setting before, but I just want to make sure that it's still good to go there. And so far, yeah. So make sure you mute your mic when you come in. I'll just make sure I mute people. And the way that we do this is, if you want to speak, you will have to, if you want to speak, you'll have to raise your hand. And the way that you raise your hand, those of you who've done this before with me, you know how it goes. You go to the bottom of the screen where in the Zoom application, Fatma, can you mute your mic? Ashura, can you mute your mic? Yeah. Okay.
If you want to pass host to me, I can take care of this stuff too.
Yeah, I'll go ahead and pass the host to you. And if you want to speak, you just go to the bottom of the Zoom and you click on where it says reactions, which is right next to the chat, and you click on raise your hand. And that's how we know who wants to speak. So right now I can see Eric's hand is raised, and Eric's hand will always be raised, and RB Ham's name is raised. So let me go ahead and make you the host, Eric. So I just made you the host. Thank you. And if you can go ahead and mute the people that need to be muted. All right, guys, for those of you on YouTube, however, I am heading out. Thank you so much for hanging out with me tonight. Tomorrow night, Danny Haifong will be here, 8 p.m. Eastern. Don't miss it. And we'll get into that Trump verdict as well. Have a good night. Keep up the fight.